Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. You can watch this program live on our Facebook page, Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You can also hear us live on our audio streaming at Evox PBS receiver app. So join us for another edition of Front and Center with your host, Jerome Toledo.
Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
The Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, has requested different government agencies for a list of properties such as cars, water vessels, and aircraft registered in the names of the 26 DPWH officials and private company owners who are facing cases before the Office of the Ombudsman in connection with the alleged anomalous infrastructure projects in Bulacan Province. In separate letters addressed to the Land Transportation Office, or LTO, Land Registration Authority, or LRA, Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP, and Maritime Industry Authority, or Marina, DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon asked the heads of these offices for a list of properties owned by individuals implicated in the multi-billion peso flood control project mess. Secretary Dizon said under the letters that this request was made to prevent the dissipation, removal, or disposal of properties strongly suspected to be the proceeds of or related to unlawful activities as defined under Section 3I of Republic Act No. 9160 as amended. And such preemptive action is necessary to safeguard assets from disposal and ensure that ongoing government efforts to combat corruption and money laundering are not undermined. Earlier, the DPWH Secretary asked for the assistance of the Anti-Money Laundering Council, or AMLAC, in filing applications before the Court of Appeals, or CA, for the issuance of freeze orders against DPWH officials, employees, and private contractors pursuant to Section 10 of RA 9160, otherwise known as the Anti-Money Laundering Act, or AMLA, which the CA has granted. And the following DPWH officials are the following. That's Henry Alcantara, the former officer in charge and the former concurrent assistant regional director, as well as Bryce Erickson Hernandez, former OIC and district engineer, JP Mendoza, former OIC assistant district engineer, John Michael Ramos, chief of construction section, Ernesto Galang from the planning and design section, Lorenzo Pagtalunan, the OIC chief of maintenance section, Norberto Santos, and some other officials and employees in the quality assurance and hydrology section, maintenance section, administrative section, budget unit, and procurement unit. And the following individuals are the officers of and also the following individuals included in the letter are the officers of private firms, namely Maria Roma Angeline Rimando of St. Timothy Construction Corporation, Cesara Rowena Vizcaya of the St. Timothy Construction Corporation, as well as its partner, Pacifico Vizcaya II of the same construction company, Mark Allen Arevalo, the general manager of Wawaw Builders, Sally Santos, the owner and manager of SYMS Construction Trading, and Robert Imperio, the owner and manager of IM Construction Corporation. And the Senate and the House of Representatives, along with internal investigations within the Department of Public Works and Highways, have revealed evidence linking to some DPWH officials and employees, as well as the private contractors, to alleged corruption involving ghost, incomplete, or substandard projects. And the department has filed a complaint before the Office of the Ombudsman against the individuals for violation of RA 3019, otherwise known as the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, and Article 217, which is the malversation of the funds under the revised penal code, and as well as and that's in relation to Article 171 on falsification, and that's under RA 9184 or the Government Procurement Reform Act. Meanwhile, Secretary Dizon, together with the Independent Commission for Infrastructure Chairperson, Supreme Court or former Supreme Court Justice Andres Reyes Jr. and ICI members, former DPWH Secretary Rogelio Singson, and the SGV and Co-Country Managing Director Rosana Fajardo, and the Special Advisor Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong met with Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte on Thursday to discuss the local government's discovery of alleged anomalous flood control projects in the city. The officials also inspected the locations of the said projects, including the Matalahib Creek Pump Station and Mariblo and Santa Cruz Pumping Station. And finally, Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte earlier reported that 66 listed flood control projects could not be found in the city. And also, regarding the flood control project, the Senate Committee on Public Services on yesterday, reopened the discussion on the proposed revised Philippine Coast Guard Law or PCG law. And Senator Rafi Tulfo, committee chairperson, moved to adopt the records and proceedings on the measure from the previous Congress. He said that law would, or the proposal rather, would save time and resources since the bill had already been extensively deliberated and approved on third and final reading in the Senate during the 19th Congress. Although its counterpart at the House of Representatives failed to hurdle the measure on the same stage. And with no objection from members, the motion was adopted and the panel proceeded to tackle Senate Bill numbers 147, 359, 438, 910, and 1142, all seeking to strengthen the mandate and capacity of the Coast Guard. And that bill aims to align the PCG's rank, position, and benefits with those of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police, while increasing manpower to 3 personnel per kilometer of a coastline from the current ratio of 1. And under that bill, it also seeks to expand the Coast Guard's authority in ensuring maritime safety, security, environmental protection, and territorial defense. And amid escalating tensions in the West Philippine Sea, the PCG's role includes the safeguarding the Filipino fisher folk, deterring illegal fishing and smuggling, and responding to maritime emergencies. And lawmakers underscored the urgency of equipping the service to carry out its mandate more effectively, thus needing the approval of the Senate bill, which is expanding the power of the Philippine Coast Guard.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Before we head into our break, so let's discuss this OCD, or the signing of law, which is the state of imminent disaster, as the Office of Civil Defense expressed gratitude to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. for signing the Republic Act number 12287, also known as the Declaration of State of Imminent Disaster. In a statement, OCD Administrator Undersecretary Harold Cabrero said the law's passage is a significant milestone in supporting the country's proactive approach to disaster risk reduction and management, or the RRM. Signed on September 12, the Republic Act 12287, or the Declaration of State of Imminent Disaster Act, introduces the concept of anticipatory action, a proactive approach that allows authorities to reduce the impact of forecasted hazards prior to occurrence or even before its most acute effects are felt. Undersecretary Cabrero said the new law would allow the Office of Civil Defense to take proactive measures before severe disasters occur by implementing anticipatory actions based on predefined triggers. And that new law covers a wide range of hazards, including hydrometeorological, geological, and climatic threats such as floods, typhoons, droughts, and storm surges, events that can be modeled and predicted with sufficient lead time. Under the law, the president, upon the recommendation of the NDRRMC, or National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, and in consultation with relevant government agencies, they may declare a state of imminent disaster in areas seen to be affected by a significant disaster. And that law can be applied to barangays, municipalities, cities, provinces, or regions. And that law also empowers local chief executives, or LCEs, to declare that imminent disaster state in their jurisdictions through an executive order in consultation with or upon the recommendation of their respective regional DRRM councils. And the declaration will be based on a pre-disaster risk assessment, which includes a classification of the forecasted hazard as severe or its equivalent. And the assessment will consider the potential effects on the population, particularly vulnerable groups rather, such as or as well as the key sectors such as agriculture, business, and industry. And the assessment must also provide a lead time of at least 3 days, extendable to 5 days, to allow government agencies to implement anticipatory actions.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
And when we come back, we will discuss about the attendance of the DFA Secretary Maria Teresa Lazaro instead of Ferdinand Marcos Jr. at the highly anticipated United Nations General Assembly happening next week. So what's gonna be like when DFA Secretary Lazaro attends the high-level meeting instead of the president or the head of state like President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. We will have the foreign policy expert to explain this decision from the president when Front and Center returns here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Paano nga ba mag-register para magkaroon ng schedule sa Bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center? Narito ang mga dapat gawin. Gamit ang iyong mobile device, pumunta sa eGovPH app. Pwede itong i-download mula sa Apple App Store o sa Google Play Store. Gumawa ng account. Ilagay ang email address, valid mobile number, pagkatapos ay makakatanggap ka ng one-time code sa iyong email. Gamitin ang code sa eGov app para sa verification ng iyong account at ng mga impormasyong ibinigay. Congratulations! Meron ka ng eGovPH app account. Pwede mo na ma-access ang iba't ibang serbisyo ng gobyerno kabilang ang mga serbisyo sa Bagong Pilipinas Presidential Action Center.
Itinuloy na po natin ang zero balance billing. Libre po. Ibig sabihin, ang serbisyo sa basic accommodation sa ating mga DOH na ospital, wala nang babayaran ang pasyente.
Ang dami pong challenge, hindi po namin alam kung saan namin kukunin, ganon, nag-iisip kung paano namin mababayaran. Siyempre po, masayang-masaya, super saya po dahil na zero billing po kami. Opo, malaking po talaga, malaking tulong po. Mabilis lang din po.
Bayad na ang bill ninyo. Uulitin ko, wala nang kailangan bayaran ng pasyente basta sa DOH Hospital dahil bayad na po ang bill ninyo.
Naiiyak ako kasi sobrang saya. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. Hindi kami nagkamali ng taong ihinalal.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome back to Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service with me, Jerome Toledo. And earlier, before we head into our short break, I've had a discussion or say a few words about the topic for today, particularly the President Marcos Jr. non-attendance to the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, or UNGA. That's a high-level meeting between member states of the United Nations. As President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. will skip attending that session of the UNGA General Assembly at the UN headquarters in New York City next week. President Marcos Jr. decided not to attend the UN General Assembly to focus on domestic issues. And having said that, he will be represented by Secretary of Foreign Affairs Maria Teresa Lazaro. And Philippine delegation to the UNGA led by Secretary Lazaro will affirm the country's commitment to multilateralism and a rules-based order. So how is this decision will affect the Philippines in terms of foreign relations? So we are now joined by a foreign policy expert, Professor Lucio Pitlo III on the line. Good morning, Professor Pitlo III. Thank you so much for joining us in this program, Front and Center, on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Good morning, Jerome. Good morning to all your listeners.
Okay, thank you. All right, so before anything else, Professor Pitlo, what is United Nations General Assembly? How big is this event?
Well, it's a big event. It's a yearly gathering of world leaders, foreign ministers or heads of state gathering in the headquarters in New York to, of course, discuss key issues, pressing issues in international affairs. Of course, the recent concerns about the Middle East, the war in Gaza, of course, the finding a way to end the Russia-Ukraine war. So these are among the key issues. But certainly, this is a platform to raise issues that matter to the world and hopefully to gather a consensus on how to address them.
Okay. Okay, so this year, President Marcos Jr. will not be attending the UN General Assembly as due to domestic issues, as mentioned. Though domestic issues are important, Professor Pitlo, but foreign policy issues are important. So, what do you observe about this decision coming from the president?
Well, as you said, domestic issues, there are a lot of pressing issues on the country right now. And so I think he decided to put more priority on, of course, the burning issue right now is the corruption involved in the controversial flood control projects, wherein not only contractors but also some leaders in government are being accused of colluding to, of course, pocket taxpayers' money to underdeliver. If not, in some instances goes, really no projects delivered at all. And so this is a serious concern for the government. This would affect, the country's reputation. There was already this issue of the South Korean government revisiting or reviewing, a project to finance some bridge construction in the Philippines. And so I think if this mess will not be addressed, this will certainly undermine the country's efforts to improve its standing as a hub for investments, which of course would not be good in government's agenda to bring in more foreign capital and also to generate jobs out of those foreign investments.
Okay, so in relation to that point, Professor Pitlo, what could be the impression of a foreign nation on the way the Marcos Jr. administration responding or addressing the controversies, corruption, anomalies in these flood control projects?
Well, I guess that the jury is still out there. He already convened an independent commission, created that commission staffed by people of competence, including people from the private sector, people from the local government. And so I think, of course, the former member of the Supreme Court. And so such caliber of people, with high credentials, will certainly improve the image of this body that would be on top of investigating, prosecuting, the people involved in this corruption scandal. But again, the flood control is just one of many projects where alleged corruption is being thrown at. And as we all know, in some countries like Indonesia, Nepal, young people have come out on the streets to protest against widespread corruption. And of course, violence ensued. There were damage to property, rioting, looting. And so this Sunday, there will be a big protest in Manila, and I think also in other cities in the country. The hope is that this would not degenerate into violence, but that he encouraged the people to go out to protest, to be angry at this corruption. But more than that, I think the people will also demand that accountability will happen. That not only small fries but big fishes, will be named. Either they serve jail time or be prevented from seeking public office in the future. And so I think the clamor of the people is to ensure that there will be no sacred cows, that everyone involved in the corruption, from the private to the government sector, will face justice. And I think that would be a good sign for investors, whether domestic, and all the more for foreign investors. It's a strong signal that rule of law and, of course, government efficiency, government efforts to speed projects, avoid red tape, avoid potential sources of corruption, is a campaign, is a major crusade of this current Marcos administration.
Okay, all right. So that's going to be a good sign for investors and as well as the international community that the government is doing everything they can to address these anomalies and corruption in the government, particularly in the flood control projects. Okay, so going back to the main topic, which is the supposedly the attendance of President Marcos Jr. at the UN General Assembly in New York, but he cannot make it. As mentioned, he was the reason for not attending the meeting is to address the domestic issues happening in the country, and one of them is the flood control projects controversy. Anyway, so in 2022. President Marcos Jr. attended the 77th session of the United Nations. So that's when he started his presidency that year. And the key theme of this speech is the climate change and disaster response, because as we know, Professor Pitlo, so the country is being ravaged, is being hit by calamities such as typhoons or earthquakes or something, or any disaster that is hitting our country. If only President Marcos will attend the assembly this year, what could be the theme of Marcos' speech at the UN General Assembly?
Well, I expect him to continue with that advocacy for climate change justice. Asking developed countries to, do exert more effort, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and as well as fund programs in developing countries that produce less of these greenhouse gases, but are in the forefront, of the brunt, the receiving end of many calamities that are can be traced to climate change. You mentioned about stronger than usual typhoons. Of course, the Philippines is in the Circum-Pacific Ring of Fire. We have many active volcanoes in the country, and we are also in this typhoon belt. The path of typhoons coming from the Pacific going to mainland Asia, they pass by our country. So, climate change increases the intensity, the frequency of, typhoons. And on the dry season, they could mean long dry spells, which of course would be bad for our agriculture. And so I think government, President Marcos will continue to raise the importance of taking more action to address climate change, and at the same time build resilience, in the face of natural disasters.
Okay, so mainly the environmental issues, particularly the climate change, will be the theme of Marcos' speech at the UN General Assembly this year. If only President Marcos Jr. Will attend the high stake meeting with UN member states. That's gonna be his center or centerpiece of his attendance there. Anyway, so still on the UN issue, or particularly the United Nations, the Philippines aspires to win the non-permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. And our country is actively campaigning for this opportunity. As we know, being part of this council is vital as they will dictate the fate of global issues raised in the UN Security Council. And despite the decision, would the Philippines have a better chance of winning the seat?
Well, we would have to see, if we will get enough votes from the membership of the UN, the GA, and of course that also depends on the issues that we would raise, and at the same time our ability to gather members of the international community to join, be part of that campaign. And so I think this is a missed chance for our country to really pitch our bid, our aspiration to be part of the non-permanent, the rotating members of the UN Security Council. But again, President Marcos Jr. has full trust and confidence on the newly appointed Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Teresa Lazaro, to represent the country and, of course, advocate, for the Philippines' membership in the UNSC. So on top of climate change, I think other issues that the Philippines may raise is, of course, adherence to international law, adherence to this rules-based order, and at the same time give more voices for countries in the global south, developing countries that are, of course, increasingly important in the international community.
Okay, so the president entrusts Secretary Lazaro of the Department of Foreign Affairs to actively campaign with fellow member states at the UN. By the way, so Foreign Affairs Secretary Lazaro will now be attending the high-level meeting in the UN headquarters next week. So, what could this mean for her?
Well, I think this is one of the, so far, the early high-profile attendances in a major, platform like the UN Assembly that she will take part of as head of the delegation. So that is a big responsibility in her shoulder. And, of course, an opportunity for her to show, her capacity to lead the country's team, taking part in that important meeting, and to represent, President Marcos, and of course be the voice, be the champion for Philippines inclusion, membership as a non-permanent, part of the UNSC.
So that's going to be like a big break for Secretary Lazaro as she will campaign.
Certainly.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, certainly. I think it will be a big break, big opportunity for her. No, she is career diplomat. She had served the service. Of course, she had portfolios like ASEAN. She also did a China stint, representing the country in bilateral consultation mechanism meetings with our Chinese counterparts. So I think she is more than prepared to take on this job.
Okay, well said. Okay, finally, Professor Pete Low III. So can the Philippines still advance its interest in the United Nations General Assembly despite absence of President Marcos Jr. and the ongoing issues in the country?
Well, certainly, we're not discounting the fact that the absence of President Marcos, our head of state, and of course the anomalies, the controversies in relation to flood control projects in the country, we're not discounting that they undercut in a way that they had some effect, in our campaign, in our bid to be part of the UNSC. But again, I think the government had took actions, the creation of this independent body to investigate the corruption, and the fact that President Marcos decided to stay put, to prioritize addressing this issue first. I think it also set
Okay. All right.
addressing problem priority for the Marcos administration. So I think there.
Professor? Professor? Okay.
Yes, Jerome.
Yeah, go ahead. You were cut off. Go ahead, please.
I think Marcos' absence
Okay.
hounding his administration right now, the flood control projects. We're not saying that they do not have any bearing on our bid to be part of UNSC. They do. Marcos decided to stay put, stay in the country, to prioritize addressing this issue first. I think signal that the government is serious in addressing this corruption mess and improving the country's image, addressing problems that negatively affect the country's standing in the international community. So I think there's also an upside to President Marcos' decision to stay at home at this point.
Okay. Very well said, Professor Pitlo III. So anyway, thank you so much for providing your analysis and insights regarding the absence of President Marcos Jr. in the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, and still, the Philippines can still actively campaign for and advance its interests in that international body. Thank you so much, Professor Lucio Pitlo III, foreign policy expert. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you, Jerome. Mabuhay.
And that was Professor Lucio Pitlo III, the foreign policy expert in the program Front and Center. And now, we end this edition of Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Together with our production team and technical personnel, this is your host, Jerome Toledo. Until next time, mabuhay.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.